Welcome to DC Unseen, live from the Media Hub on RiotRadio.ca. I'm your host, Katie Gerard, and this show is all about the unseen stories of student, faculty, and staff member of Durham College. I'm starting off the series, and this is part 6 of total of 6 shows on my medical journey thus far, and hopefully my final one. And in the last episode, I ended the episode off with a video of me walking at SickKids, which was a huge step, no pun intended. You might be wondering why I was at SickKids, as I finally had made it back to the rehabilitation hospital at Bloorview. The sad fact of the matter was that every 2 weeks or so, I was acutely ill and had to be transferred back to SickKids, where I would stay for another couple weeks on the neurosurgery ward. My recovery was anything but smooth. On the topic of SickKids, a big thing that they do for patients at the program is called Bravery Bead. And once a patient gets admitted to SickKids, they get a special bead for tests, pokes, and procedures. And they have a group of woodworkers who craft like a bowl for you to keep your beads in. And I will show you a couple of my beads that I have gained over the past couple of years. So there's quite a few of them. Now, if you are a patient at SickKids for a long time, like say if you're a chemo patient or someone who's been there for a long time, you will rack up way more beads. But this was a lot for me, considering at the time. So you can see these ones here represent every time I got a needle poke. There's ones that have cars or airplanes on them, like the car, and that represents every time I was transferred from ambulance from SickKids to Holland Bloorview. And even I have a plane or a helicopter referring to the time that I was airlifted from Air Orange on August 6th, 2020. And yeah, so they gifted me this beautiful bowl. And yeah, so there's also a bald head, which represents the bald head represents every time I got my head shaven for surgery. So there's about quite a few heads that represent that. It's kind of all a mess right now, but so you can see that. And this is a picture of me, or of me with my beads on. So yeah, you can see I have quite a few of them. Yeah, so they're very important because they represent very meaningful times. And the beads are helpful because they're a visual representation of what I went through. And for kids, they can see what they've overcome or endured over the time being there. So it's very impactful for the children to have that representation, that visual representation. So here's a video.
What do you think of all these beads, Kate? What do you think of all these beads, Kate?
As you can see visually, I do not look that well. But yeah, after the break, I'll talk about being discharged home after a year in hospital. This is Katie Gerard, live from the Media Hub on RiotRadio.ca. After 12 months in hospital, multiple surgeries, and setbacks, I was finally discharged home to stay in 2021 in July. And so here's a video of me returning home.
Maybe, yeah, you can take a picture or something. Oh, are you taking it?
Very first time.
So we give you scissors. Oh, Mom took out the light, and it was a good light too. Dad would say, "Money doesn't go on trees."
It doesn't. Come on.
She said that last time.
Seriously.
Kate is coming. Oh, Kate.
Poke you in It's on the ramp. Wait, wait, wait. Yeah.
We should have had the speakers go. Oh, Jesus.
So as you can see, they gave me scissors. I'm not sure if that was the smartest move on their part. As you can see, I wasn't in the best ability to handle scissors, but anyway. So part of the rehabilitation program at Bloorview was to prepare patients to come back home. So because of this, I had a number of weekend visits where I would be able to come home for the weekend. So I would stay for the week, do therapies throughout the week, and then like from Monday to Friday, and then from Saturday to Sunday I'd be at home. And I got those passes every couple of months, which was nice to be back home with my dogs for that time. And so I got these until February until July, sorry. But this was the first time that I would be able to come home for good. So I felt great and relieved to no longer live in hospital. And I still had, of course, the home nurses come home to visit me, but it wasn't the same. Like, I was just in my own bed, in my own space with my dogs, not in a hospital room hearing beeps 24/7. As I'm sure if you guys have ever stayed in hospital, you know that you don't get much sleep because of the beeps that go on in the room. But yeah, so my parents had to buy a hospital bed for me because with the hydrocephalus that I had, they had to be like leveled at a certain position, or else you could get a hydrocephalus scene and have to go back to sick kids. So because of this, I had to get a hospital bed, and it would raise up when I would sleep so that the pressures wouldn't change. It's a very complex thing. I don't really understand it completely myself, so don't worry. But yeah, so I had since returned home from sick kids, but was not off the hook yet. So I had a home service with nurses that would come 3 times every day to ensure that the meningitis wouldn't return once again. Like the nurses at Sick Kids in Bloorview, my home nurses were really nice and amazing. When September rolled around, I went back to my school, St. Stephen's in Bowmanville. This was a huge step once again, and I was with a year younger than me because this was my second year coming back from my surgery, so I was graduating with the year younger than me. But because of this, so I could barely speak, and I had to rely on gestures, like waving my finger for no, thumbs up for yes, and I couldn't speak. I couldn't have a conversation with anyone. So I was still on a feeding tube, and the nurses had to come to school each day to help me with this, and they would flush it and go through that. So while in the fall I attended a program at Nova's Ark. I'm not sure if you know Nova's Ark. It's a program for kids who are living with different difficulties. So at this program, they have you help out at the farm. So you get to be with like all these animals, like goats, capybaras even. So it's really crazy. And it was really nice because I was able to be with a group of people who were at similar levels as me at the time. So it was very nice. It was located in Brooklyn, and there are therapists like OTs, PTs, SLPs, and they have all kinds of credible animals like lemurs, camels, horses, donkeys, capybaras, foxes, wolves, and many more. This program was great because it was really good to interact with people with similar abilities and building relationships with the staff and being with different animals. So I was 4 months out of hospital, and I had to get my feeding tube changed every month. So that was a lot of work. And I was coming up to my 18th birthday, and I made a goal for myself to get rid of it before I turned 18. I was very determined, and I did not let anyone tell me that I couldn't do this, so I was very insistent on getting this done. So because I had lost the ability to swallow because of the brain bleed and meningitis, I had to relearn how to swallow and eat properly without the feeding tube. So it was coming up to my 18th birthday, and I said, we're going to cut it. We're going to do it. I'm going to get rid of this thing, get rid of this bastard. And we finally did it. Coming up to my 18th birthday, it was gone. It was perfect. So that was a really good step. And actually, I had to go to a swallowing clinic at the time to make sure I was swallowing properly, because if you are on a feeding tube and you don't use your muscles, you can lose the ability to swallow. So this x-ray, so I went through this x-ray that x-rayed my throat. And I had to eat this like weird barium liquid yogurt or something. It was very odd, but anyway, it was really cool. So that was that. And in the community, I started to get rehab at Grandview Children's Center. And I have amazing PT and OT. And I regained the ability that I had lost to walk with a walker. I also started walking with a cane, and it felt very liberating to be out of the wheelchair. Because before the walker and the wheelchair, or the walker and the cane, I was in a wheelchair, so this was a huge step at the time. I also started to give presentations to classes about my health journey. This was a big step because I was regaining the ability to speak again and able to speak again. In June, I was well enough to go to prom. Because I graduated with a year younger than me, my cohort didn't get prom because of COVID. So I was kind of lucky in the sense that I got COVID still. I got prom still, sorry. So that was very lucky. And yeah, so I'm a big thrifter and decided to look local thrift stores to see if they had any dresses, because usually when people buy their dresses for prom, they'll buy it and then donate it back to St. Vincent de Paul or thrift store, just because it's what you do, because you won't ever wear a prom dress again. So that's what I did. I went to the Bibles for Mission in my street, and I was able to pick up a prom dress. It was actually really great. So for $25, I walked out of there with a prom dress. So that was mint. And I guess you could say that I got a good deal. And unfortunately, after prom, I got very sick and my shunt failed. So I had to get rushed back to Sick Kids from home to get my shunt revised. After another month at Sick Kids, I was back at Bloorview for another month to recover to get more rehab. And this was after spending my school year at home and going to school. So it felt like a very big setback at the time. Bloorview allowed me to go to my high school of graduation, and although I had to leave early because I was so exhausted, I was able to cross the stage and receive my OSSD. So it was very funny because when I was going to my grad, I was obviously back because of my shunt failing. So I was in back of my wheelchair, my back of my wheelchair, my lean back wheelchair, not using my walker or my cane anymore like it was in the fall or in the spring. So this was very hard. And when I received my diploma, I rose my hand and I went like this, and everyone started clapping. It was really sweet, but it was a very, very monumental moment for me, I guess you could say. In September of 2022, I was getting better, and I even got to volunteer at Sick Kids Get Loud fundraiser, which is their big annual fundraiser that they do every year. So that was very, very good. I had volunteered before my illness, so that was nice and a really big step for me. Around this time, I had to get reconstructive surgery, though, on my skull. I had to have 2 surgeries at Sunnybrook, and these would be my first surgeries outside of Sick Kids. So that's pretty daunting for someone to go through, being at this time 19, I think. So from having hospital care with pediatric nurses and people who work with kids to then going to a hospital that you're not familiar with no accommodations like they would have therapies at Sick Kids for. So this was very hard. And And yeah, so for my first surgery, I ended up being in the hallway for a few days before my surgery. So very different experience, to say the least. The nurses and doctors were still very nice, but they did not have the time or support needed for their patients, or to focus on the patients. And they do it in a pediatric hospital, like sick kids. And I'm still very grateful for that care that I got at both places. And to pass the time, I did some videos which I entitled Hospital Eats, where I would review hospital food. So that was nice. That was funny. And back in 2020, I was still very ill. And the social worker at Sick Kids suggested that my family apply for a program called Make-A-Wish. And this time, I was 16 and was critically ill. So my Make-A-Wish started engaging with me and my family to craft me a wish. And at the time, during COVID, no trips were available, and I was much too sick to enjoy anything at all. So fast forward to 2022 now, I was starting to be more stable and more aware. And trips in Canada opened up, just not outside of Canada. So I was very limited on what I could do. So we planned a trip out to Banff, Alberta, the most exciting place in Canada. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, so we planned that trip, and it was all planned and ready to go and set. But then I had a shunt malfunction, and I was set back and had to have another surgery. So that trip was canceled, sadly. But it was good in the long run because it opened up me to going to. This is Katie Gerard coming to you live from the Media Hub on RideRadio.ca. And yes, if you guessed the place for my Make-A-Wish was New York, you're correct. I originally wanted to meet Harry Styles, but he had done many Make-A-Wishes in the past, and because of COVID, he wasn't up to doing Make-A-Wishes outside where he was staying. So that was quickly aborted, and but that led me to my next choice, which was the person who has met every single celebrity out there pretty well, and that is Jimmy Fallon. Yeah, so that was incredible. For my Make-A-Wish, I asked to see Jimmy Fallon. I asked to see the Jimmy Fallon show, and unfortunately, Make-A-Wish, my Make-A-Wish and my parents originally told me that they could not guarantee me meeting Jimmy Fallon because he was very busy, and I wanted and was granted a week in New York City with my family, which is awesome. And I was able to go to the Statue of Liberty, the 9/11 Museum, the Brooklyn Bridge, and this really cool place called Soho, which is south of the Houston Bridge. And it was really cool. And yeah, so my mom, dad, and 2 sisters and I went to New York City during March break in 2023, so this past March. And we went to a couple of Broadway shows, including Wicked, Hamilton, and Book of Mormon. And it was awesome to see Hamilton on Broadway. And because it was such a big phenomenon at the time, it was incredible to see it. Yeah, so we did all the must-see things to do in New York. And on the big day, we were picked up by my hotel, by a big Escalade vehicle to go to the Jimmy Fallon show. And here's a picture, I think, of the Jimmy Fallon show. Maybe. Yeah, this is me when I found out I was going to the Jimmy Fallon show. So it was really nice because my mom and my dad made a big surprise that I was going to go meet Jimmy Fallon. So that was pretty incredible. And on the big day, we were picked up by our hotel and escorted to the NBC studios, where we watched The Tonight Show, and the special guests were Zachary Levi and Keira Knightley, which was incredible. And after we watched the show, Jimmy Fallon, we were brought to a change room, like a guest room, where all the guests go before they go onto the set. And we waited there, and while we were waiting there, Jimmy Fallon walks in, and my jaw dropped. I could not believe it. He came in, and when we were in the room, there were actually there was lots of snacks and these gourmet cookies and chips, and there was even Jason Momoa's water, the Aquaman's water. So that was pretty incredible. And yeah, the producers of the Tonight Show brought in 2 bags of Tonight Show merch, which is very cool. As you can see, I got the pillow, the hat, and the sweater. That's what Tonight Show is. There we go. There we go. Yeah, pretty great swag. Yeah. So that was very, very cool. And yeah, so he was telling us about how he first met Harry Styles, which was incredible because I got to somehow tie in the fact that I somehow got to tie in the fact of Harry Styles in with my wish, like, you know, that relevance there, which is very cool. And yeah, so I went to his dressing room, and it was where it was really cool. It is where he sits and gets ready for every show that he does. And when we were there, I noticed a smell, and I commented on the smell, and I was like, what is that smell? And his assistant came out with a candle of what is a smell in his dressing room, and it is bougie perfume is what it's called, but it smells like campfire. You can't smell it, but it's a really good smelling candle, yet to be lit. Probably will never light it because it's so sacred, but I can now say that I have Jimmy Fallon's candle in my house, or his scent in my house now, which is very cool. And he said he's never signed a candle before. It's a signed candle, which is very, very cool. Then we went on stage, and he talked to me for 45 minutes. Interviewed me like a mock interview, and it was incredible. Yeah, and so it was just so awesome, and I was treated like a star, honestly. It was kind of crazy. So when you ask for a celebrity wish, the Make-A-Wish company can't guarantee how much time the celebrity will spend with you or meet with you for, because they're a celebrity and they have all these crazy different things. So for him to do this was very special and unexpected, honestly. But yeah, we even brought him like ketchup chips and Canadian snacks like maple syrup and Joe Louis, and he tasted them on set, and it was very cool because he was able to try them. And he said that his daughter actually is a really big fan of Canadian maple syrup, so he will be using that on his pancakes. So I like to imagine that my maple syrup is sitting in his pantry being used on Sunday brunches every morning. But yeah, so yeah, I was very fortunate to have chosen Jimmy Fallon because he spent a total of an hour with me. So that was really incredible. And Make-A-Wish is important for young people who have been through a critical illness because it changes the channel. Like if you're a kid who are always going to the hospital and having all the hospital and stuff around you, or you're surrounded by it, it can get very depressing and sad. So to have something like a wish being granted to you changes the channel completely, and it makes it so much more exciting and fun. So that was very cool. This is Katie Gerard live with DC Unseen live from Media Hub on riotradio.ca. Make-A-Wish has been a really great organization, and I've helped them out by being a spokesperson for them. So on World Wish Day in April, I was interviewed by CP24 Breakfast with the CEO of Make-A-Wish, Megan McKnight. So that was pretty incredible. And this summer, I was actually invited by broadcaster Cheryl Hickey to shadow her for Global Television for ET Canada, along with Sangeeta Patel for the day. And that was like a wish in itself, honestly. like being able to shadow Cheryl Hickey for the day while she worked at ET Canada. So that was pretty incredible. And actually, on Tuesday morning, I was actually interviewed by Pooja and Gurdeep of 98.1 CHFI for Giving Tuesday, and it should air next Tuesday. So stay tuned for that, because that'll be pretty interesting. And today I'm heading to Toronto after I record this, because Make-A-Wish is hosting their annual Trees of Joy event, which is an event that they host, and they sponsor 50 sponsors host or sponsor a family to have a kid decorate a tree for them. So they do this in November in preparation for Christmas, and it's actually held at the Royal York Hotel, which is pretty incredible. So yeah, and now I'm in the broadcasting program here at DC, and now I've gone from being able to talk, not being able to talk, to talking too much. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so that was pretty remarkable to have that change around. That is not the end of my story, but that is the end of my retelling of the last few years of my rocky life. So thank you for listening, and to many people who have reached out to me, thank you. And I hope my story can give some people some hope or some light that they can look forward to. And no matter how bad things can get, there's always a bright light on the other side. As cliche as that sounds, it's real. And that things can get better one day at a time. It seems as though I have had a positive outlook on life, but when I went through this, it did not seem that way at all. And yeah, so for this, I'm so happy and grateful for the simple things in life, like going to school and my friends. And don't get me wrong, I still have my hard days, like everyone does, but having this in perspective really changes it. And my family and I were supported by our community, so I'm grateful for that. This is Kathleen Gerard signing off from the Riot Radio at Media Hub, and here we go.